Coming up on our newscast tonight. The stars of the historic summit set for Tuesday have arrived in Singapore and met the host nation's prime minister. Security is at an all-time high and it's a media frenzy here and around the event venue. Sung Kim and Choi Sun-hee, the two key high-level officials from the U.S. and North Korea respectively, met again this morning. The near 2-hour-long session is held to put the final touches in terms of preparations for the summit. In his weekly meeting with top aides, President Moon Jae-in shared his thoughts on the upcoming summit. He is confident the two leaders will do what it takes to help usher in a new era for the Korean Peninsula and the world. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome, I'm Daniel Choi. As we have been doing all day, our starting point is once again Singapore, where the North Korea-U.S. summit will be held. Our Iji-won is standing by in the host nation as part of our special summit coverage team. Let's go straight to her at the International Media Center right now. Ji-won, what do you have for us?
Daniel, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo held a press briefing about 2 hours ago, and he confirmed that U.S. President Donald Trump recognizes North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's desire for security and that U.S. is prepared to ensure that a North Korea free of weapons of mass destruction is also a secure North Korea. Pompeo also mentioned that the U.S. and North Korean delegates who had been negotiating over at the inter-Korean border village of Panmunjom for the past few days met again in the afternoon following their 7th meeting this morning, and that the two sides were still meeting as he spoke. Pompeo said the discussions were progressing quickly.
They're in fact moving quite rapidly, and we anticipate they will come to their logical conclusion even more quickly than we had anticipated.
And while correcting a New York Times report, Pompeo emphasized that the U.S. has been working for over 3 months with more than 100 experts in multiple times a week to address technical and logistical issues in dismantling North Korea's nuclear programs. He also said that the experts include people with specialized knowledge of North Korea's nuclear, chemical, biological, and missile programs. Now, Pompeo also said that the U.S. remains firm on what it wants from the North.
The ultimate objective we seek from diplomacy with North Korea has not changed. The complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of the Korea Peninsula is the only outcome that the United States will accept.
Pompeo also stressed that sanctions will remain until North Korea completely and verifiably eliminates its weapons of mass destruction programs, and that if diplomacy does not move in the right direction, those measures will increase. But he also said President Trump is open to expanding access to foreign investment and other economic opportunities for North Korea if they take the right steps.
Well, John, aside from the ex-Intel chief, a lot of work is also being done. Last-minute preparations are being made for the summit, being carried out by both sides. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, Daniel. The agenda of tomorrow's summit were being discussed in the meeting between America's ambassador to the Philippines, and who is also the former nuclear negotiator, Sung Kim, and North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister, Choi Sun-hee. And judging from Pompeo's briefing, it seems like the two could be getting closer to what they want. But to tell you what they were stuck on, inside sources have said that the discussions seem to have hinged on the notion of North Korea's complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization, or CVID. Unnamed sources say the U.S. seeks to get a commitment from the North to CVID in writing, but Pyongyang is protesting strongly against the phrase because it sees it as portraying the regime as a defeated country. But with Pompeo having said that they are reaching a conclusion faster than they had expected, many are expressing careful optimism for tomorrow's summit. Now, of course, the result of the summit have direct bearing on security on the Korean Peninsula and on future developments in the inter-Korean relations. And so the South Korean government is on the ground and is keeping a close watch. Woo Jung-hee has this.
Negotiations between North Korea and the U.S. are continuing until the very last minute, but it's nothing to worry. That's according to South Korea's presidential office of Chung Hwa-dae at a press briefing in Singapore on Monday. Speaking to the international press, Seoul said the fact that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump are sitting face-to-face in and of itself is a big leap forward.
The fact that the leaders of North Korea and the United States arrived in Singapore yesterday marks the official beginning of the summit, and that is highly significant. We expect a fierce tug-of-war to continue between the two sides until tomorrow's summit ends, but we also expect some good outcome.
During the 7 decades that have passed since the end of the Korean War, there's been no single North Korea-U.S. summit. And that is why, Seoul says, it's all the more crucial for both sides to build and confirm confidence in each other at this first ever summit. An unnamed official from South Korea's presidential office highlighted it is one of Pyongyang's biggest goals to be recognized as a sincere partner for dialogue. The South Korean government is cautious in its comments on the Pyongyang-Washington summit, but it's keeping close tabs on the developments, dispatching a special team of officials on the ground. The team is to deliver the latest developments of Kim-Trump summit to the home government while bringing and releasing the South Korean government's own response as well. All that will happen at Korea Press Center, a press center Seoul set up in Singapore separately from International Media Center. As for now, chances are low for the Kim-Trump summit to be followed by a three-way summit with South Korean President Moon Jae-in, but Seoul says it'll be ready for all possible scenarios. Once the results of the summit are out, Seoul will release its official response here at the Korea Press Center. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News, Singapore.
Now, that's all we have from Singapore as of now, but we'll be joining you live from early morning tomorrow to bring you the latest on the much-anticipated North Korea-U.S. summit.
All right, guys, thank you for those updates. We appreciate it. Moving on, President Trump is staying in close touch with his South Korean counterpart ahead of his meeting tomorrow. The two leaders spoke on the phone this afternoon. Cha Sang-mi shares with us what was discussed.
Seoul is keeping in close touch with Washington. President Moon spoke on the phone Monday with President Trump, who's in Singapore awaiting his face-to-face with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. According to South Korea's Blue House, the two leaders spoke for 40 minutes starting at 4:30 p.m. Korea time.
President Moon said it was Mr. Trump's bold decisions that led to this historic North Korea-U.S. summit tomorrow. And he said that we South Koreans will be wishing with all our hearts that Mr. Trump is able to achieve a miraculous outcome.
The Blue House spokesperson said the two leaders touched upon the progress that has been made so far and discussed the ways in which their efforts will bear fruit in Tuesday's meeting. Both Moon and Trump agreed that through frank talks with Kim, they'll be able to find common interests and ultimately reach a goal the entire world wants: a Korean peninsula free of nuclear weapons. Trump also pledged to send his Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to Seoul after the Singapore summit to discuss further details and ways that Seoul and Washington can work together. And according to a high-level official, Moon and Trump also discussed the process of declaring an end to the Korean War, but there were no details officially released about that. In a lighter moment, President Moon said that a successful Pyongyang-Washington summit will be a great gift for the people of the world, but also a great birthday present for President Trump, who's turning 72 on June 14th. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
Aside from that phone with Trump, President Moon Jae-in called on the leaders of North Korea and the U.S. to make big, bold decisions ahead of the historic summit in Singapore. Chief Cheong Wa correspondent Moon Gun-young tells us more.
이제 새로운 한반도 시대를 염원하는 전 세계인들의 바람이 실현될 수 있도록 두 지도자가 서로의 요구를 통 크게 주고받는 담대한 결단을 기대합니다.
A big give and take by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump is what the South Korean president, who's been a major driver of rapprochement with the North, is calling for on the eve of what he's referred to as a historic turning point from war to peace. Mr. Moon's remarks during a weekly meeting of his top aides come as U.S. negotiators met with their North Korean counterparts one last time to try to nail down final details for the first ever summit between a sitting U.S. president and a North Korean leader. The U.S. team, led by Sung Kim, a longtime State Department diplomat who now serves as a U.S. ambassador to the Philippines, had held at least 5 sessions with the Pyongyang delegation over the past 2 weeks at the demilitarized zone in Korea. But the two sides reportedly have struggled to close the gap between the U.S. position on North Korean denuclearization, which means it would immediately dismantle its weapons program, ship nuclear warheads out, and allow international inspectors to verify the results. North Korea likely envisions a staged process where each concession from the North is met with something from the U.S. Sanctions relief, economic aid, a formal peace treaty to end the 1950-53 Korean War, and formal diplomatic ties could all be potential sweeteners to any deal. Nonetheless, the South Korean president expressed confidence that the historic Kim-Trump summit will be a success, adding South Korea should and will remain the driver in all endeavors regarding the Korean peninsula.
앞으로도 한반도의 완전한 비핵화와 평화 체제가 구축될 때까지 최선을 다할 것입니다. 어떤 상황 속에서도 적어도 한반도 문제만큼은 우리가 주인공이라는 자세와 의지를 잃지 않도록 국민들께서 끝까지 함께해 주실 것을 부탁드립니다.
The South Korean president, who has been touted by many for brilliantly brokering the talks between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump, is carefully following the summit from 4,500 kilometers away, but keeping his country in the equation, and rightfully so, as he hopes to complete the journey that he started, the journey of denuclearization, the journey of ending the near 7-decade war, a journey to peace. 문건영, Arirang News, The Blue House.
The summit that some thought was improbable did not become a reality quickly nor easily. New York, Singapore, and Panmunjom on the inter-Korean border, according to our Woo Soo-young, talks through 3 different channels paved the way.
Ahead of the anticipated summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un, officials from both sides have shuttled through the so-called 3-track preparation talks to make the historic meeting happen and pave the way for a deal on denuclearizing the North. Despite uncertainty over whether the two leaders would meet as planned on June 12th, after the US leader abruptly called the summit off, the pre-summit talks began at the inter-Korean village of Panmunjom in Singapore and New York. Attending the Panmunjom talks from North Korea's side were Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee and Choi Kang-il, who oversees North American affairs. The US delegates included Ambassador to the Philippines Sung Kim and Specialists on Korea and Asia Affairs Alison Hooker and Randall Shriver.
They would have reached, to a certain extent, a broad agreement and time frame on the complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization that the U.S. pushed for. The North has requested a gradual, step-by-step process with compensation including a security guarantee. Such a procedure would be needed for inspection and removal of the nuclear weapons, so the U.S. may have agreed implicitly.
Meanwhile, the heads of protocol from both sides held talks in Singapore over the technical details of the summit, including security, protocol, and the specific meeting venue. Over in New York, high-level meetings took place between Kim Jong-un's top aide and former spy chief Kim Yong-to, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and the CIA's Korea Desk Chief Andrew Kim. After the North Korean official's subsequent meeting with President Trump, the summit was declared back on again.
His visit was a final piece of the puzzle. It seems talks on the protocol as well as the agenda had been wrapped up to a certain extent. So along with the result of his meeting with Pompeo, he would have personally conveyed Kim Jong-un's views on denuclearization to Trump, as well as the personal letter expressing his will to hold the talks.
The two sides may have agreed on the wider framework on denuclearization, but the expert says the devil is in the details, and that Tuesday's summit is just the first of many discussions to come. Woo Soo-young, Arirang News.
After the historic sit-down, the two leaders could hold an additional meeting elsewhere. According to South Korean daily Jungang-ilbo, citing a local source in Singapore, Kim Jong-un has invited Trump to North Korea to hold a second summit in July. That the duo are looking to discuss denuclearization in general at the Singapore meeting, then proceed on to hash out the details in Pyongyang. If the second summit is held, it may be followed by another in Washington come September. Setting up an American embassy in North Korea, it's an idea Donald Trump is open to, citing sources familiar with the summit preparations. U.S.-based internet news site Axios reports it's one of the many topics that could be discussed at the meeting. The working groups of both sides have touched on establishing official relations. A U.S. embassy in Pyongyang was an option that was brought up. But according to a source close to the White House, such a move depends on what Trump gets in return, and denuclearization would have to be underway. Denuclearization is the focal point, of course, but there's more to cover during the summit, from economy, security to politics. Our Park Hee-jun zooms in on what more the two leaders will try to get out of their historic meeting.
For weeks, it's been clear North Korea and the United States, or at least Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, wanted the summit to happen despite some hiccups along the way. They have their respective goals and will be doing their utmost to achieve them in Singapore. The Trump administration's ultimate goal is North Korea's CVID, the regime's complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization. President Trump initially demanded an all-in-one immediate package deal. The goal remains the same, but recently he's been tempering expectations about what can be achieved through one meeting, saying it will likely require a step-by-step approach. He's hinted several times that resolving the nuclear issue will not be a quick fix. And Washington is pushing to specify the method and timetable of Pyongyang's nuclear disarmament through the form of an agreement. What North Korea wants, however, is more complex. Pyongyang is demanding what many call CVIG, the complete, verifiable, and irreversible guarantee of the regime's security. This concept can be seen from political, economic, and military aspects. Politically, North Korea would have to be acknowledged as a normal nation, and Pyongyang would want to establish diplomatic ties with the U.S. and host each other's embassies. Economically, North Korea needs to scale down the level of international sanctions imposed on it, as the security of the regime requires a stable and robust economy. The North wants economic assistance as well, especially aid that will help it stand on its own feet. Finally, militarily, North Korea has been outspoken in wanting to avoid military threats. It's been highly critical of joint military exercises between South Korea and the U.S. To ensure there are no future threats, the regime will seek a declaration of the end of the Korean War and even further a peace treaty. The best scenario leading to a somewhat successful summit would be a fair exchange between the U.S. vision of CVID and North Korea's CVIG.
There needs to be a fair balance between CVID and CVIG. The best result would involve North Korea agreeing to denuclearize within a short period of time. I don't think that will happen in Singapore, but nonetheless, the talks are greatly significant and will add momentum to the next possible round of talks.
As President Trump has been saying, the Singapore summit is just the beginning and a process. More rounds of talks between the two leaders are expected before they reach a compromise. But nevertheless, the world will be watching how Tuesday's unprecedented historic event unfolds. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
The two leaders won't simply strike a deal on denuclearization. Attention will be paid to the details as to how it will be achieved. And to learn more about the process and the possible duration, our Ko Ryun-hee turned to some experts for their insights.
North Korea's denuclearization is a complex and troublesome process that requires not months but years of effort. Professor Siegfried Hecker of Stanford University believes the disarmament process could take approximately 15 years. According to a roadmap drawn upon with his colleagues, North Korea first needs to halt nuclear tests and all operations at nuclear reactors. This would be followed by the dismantling of missiles and nuclear facilities, which would then have to be monitored and inspected. The final step requires the North to eliminate its nuclear program and join the Non-Proliferation Treaty, redirecting its nuclear scientists and engineers to civilian programs. But other experts in South Korea say the process can be shortened to 2 years.
President Donald Trump probably wants to speed up the process for his own political reasons. The U.S. presidential election will be held in 2020, and he'll want to accomplish denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula before it happens.
Dr. Kim says the U.S. would first require the North to get rid of direct threats, ICBMs that are capable of hitting anywhere in the U.S. Then North Korea would have to discard its nuclear weapons and nuclear materials, as well as decommission nuclear facilities. Everything will ultimately have to be verified by international bodies. the entire process will be completed within 2 years. And according to experts, Washington is unlikely to tolerate North Korea's lack of commitment.
If North Korea does not show commitment after a series of negotiations, the U.S. is likely to place additional sanctions and escalate its pressure on the country. If there is no significant change within a certain time period, the U.S. will have to force it through measures that it had originally planned but had not wished to use.
But for it to be done smoothly and swiftly, Washington must offer certain guarantees and rewards in return.
It must accompany denuclearization with a guarantee of the North Korean regime's safety. This entails establishing diplomatic relations with Pyongyang, concluding a peace treaty, and lifting economic sanctions. And if the international community provides aid and collaborates with the North, the regime will be much more stable than it is now.
Experts say that as long as there is a fair share of exchange and, most importantly, North Korea's full commitment to denuclearize, it's only a matter of time until the Korean peninsula is completely nuclear-free. 고르니, 아리랑 뉴스.
Countries neighboring the Korean Peninsula are paying extra close attention to how the talks will develop. Park Ji-won turns the spotlight to how China, Russia, and Japan are rushing to avoid being left out.
Ahead of the historic summit between Pyongyang and Washington, China seems to be maintaining its long-held special influence over North Korea. The Chinese government has offered North Korean leader Kim Jong-un a special jet for him and his personal entourage to travel to Singapore. The jet, equipped with secure satellite communications, has been used by top Chinese government officials, including President Xi Jinping and his personal aides, when traveling abroad. China will be looking to play a significant role in the current situation with North Korea.
China is a main party of the issues of the Korean Peninsula, and a signing party of the armistice agreement will continue to assume its appropriate role.
Russia is also working to restore relations with Pyongyang. North Korea's state-run media reported earlier this month that North Korea and Russia have agreed to hold a bilateral summit later this year, commemorating the 70th anniversary of their establishment of diplomatic ties. Russia's foreign ministry conveyed its support for Pyongyang's will to denuclearize. Japan, meanwhile, is closely monitoring the situation surrounding the historic talks between Pyongyang and Washington by sending a delegation of senior officials to Singapore. The delegation, which includes the head of Japan's National Security Council, Shotaro Yachi, arrived in Singapore Sunday and is tasked with gathering information on the results of the talks.
It is paramount that we urge the U.S. to push for a complete resolution of the North nuclear and missile issues, as well as abductee issues.
With the Korean Peninsula's neighbors closely watching the summit, the international power dynamics in the region could soon change based on the result of the summit talks. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Time to turn to Michelle Bach at the Weather Center for the updates we need. Michelle?
Well, Singapore has a tropical climate, which means the daily highs there in June are about 4 degrees higher than Seoul. Now the humidity gets up to 80% as well. And tomorrow will be somewhat cloudy and there'll be sporadic showers, though that'll make for a steamy day at 34 degrees Celsius, a few degrees higher than today. Now, as for here in Korea, we're expecting showers tonight. Less than 5 millimeters are expected to fall in Seoul, while as much as 30 are expected to further down south. In general, unlike today, we should be able to look up to nice clearer skies tomorrow with mild highs. The morning in Seoul will begin at 16 degrees Celsius. Daegu and Gyeongju will start at 15 and 13 degrees. Into the day, Seoul will top out to 26 degrees, Gwangju and Busan topping out to 26 and 22 degrees. On the day of the local elections on Wednesday, it's going to be sunny, and it looks like it's going to go sunny throughout the whole weekend. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all from us for now. Do join us tomorrow for all-day coverage of this special summit between Pyongyang and Washington tomorrow morning. Thank you for watching.